Hey everybody, this is David Muniz from Senha Segura, and I'm here with Felipe. Hey Felipe.
Hey, how's it going?
Everything is going fine. 2021 was a hard year for everybody, yeah? We've seen increase in threats and malicious attacks. So that was, well, a lot of work, but which is somehow good. And let's see what waits for us for 2022. Before we start, some housekeeping. This session is being recorded, so everyone will receive a copy of the session in the end of the webinar. We encourage you to use the question section to make questions and to interact with us. We want to encourage you to send questions so we can answer here, we can interact with us, so we can take some insights from this conversation today. So without further ado, so let's start. Well, in the last years, technologies they have depending on technology, not only companies but society as well. Companies are trying to digitalize their processes. Well, we've heard of all this process called digital transformation, and this is not only for startups. This is for companies of all sizes, of all industries, and the main purpose of this is to offer the best experience for not only their customers but partners, providers, and employees as well. So all of these digital transformation process brought along new technologies like cloud, big data, Internet of Things, which also includes the industrial Internet of Things, and the 5G. They brought not only the benefits that they have the purpose to bring, but also the increase of cyber threats. And also in the recent years, when especially in the COVID times, when we had the migration of remote work that was boosted by the pandemic, they brought pieces in people more vulnerable to malicious attackers. So that made also the cybersecurity aspect in the hype, not only, and also in business conversations. So nowadays, cybersecurity is not an aspect related to IT, but cybersecurity is an aspect related to the business. What and now with the end of the year coming, security leaders they need to know what are the trends for the market and what are the challenges that wait for us in 2022, so we all can get prepared for this threat scenario. uh, to give us an idea how cybersecurity will be important in 2022, according to a study from Flexera, cybersecurity will be the main initiative for half of the organization's research. Does this data surprises you, Felipe? Do you really think that cybersecurity should be a priority in 2022?
Yes, of course. Not only in 2022, but before and after, because again, every day the attackers, have increased in every part of the world, and as we can see in the news and on TV, many aspects of these attacks looking for cloud threats and different, or using ransomware or using another different malware. So we can see in our, and this is specifically the last week, the bone of the log4j exploiting, already using, for example, ransomware attacking using this specific exploit, a vulnerability actually. And as you mentioned, you looking for the IoTs threads or EOTs, like infrastructure, Internet of Things, or so we have this challenge from this new year again, and the attacks can increase it. So we need to growing our defenses mechanism to not guarantee 100% because it's impossible, but to grow the most, the more high you can do.
Yeah, and now, well, nowadays we say that data is the new oil, right? Data got values not only for companies but for society as a whole, and it's important for us. Well, we've seen data protection laws that are going out to improve how companies deal and secure data. And that's, I think it's the first trend that I'd like to bring here, that data protection laws, they will be more broad and they will reach more people. Well, data is growing exponentially. We see every day new on the news data breaches that are more frequent, and the demand for security and data privacy for sure will grow. Will increase in next year, and governments, they have increasing the pressure to pass data protection laws. For to give us an idea, Gartner estimates, for example, that by 2023, information, personal information of 75% of the world's population will be covered by data specific data protection law. Uh, in 2021, China, Saudi Arabia, and Brazil were some of the companies that had that have specific data privacy law. In Europe, for example, the transfer of personal data between EU countries to non-EU countries was also established, and also in the US. They are among the group of countries that still don't have a specific federal law to assure data protection. But on the other hand, we have California, Colorado, Virginia, for example. There are some states that have passed uh, um, a specific data protection law. But what surprises me, and I don't know if you agree with me, Felipe, is that the US still don't have a federal a data protection law. And that surprises me because we see California, for example, that was, I think, was before, even before countries, they have passed the CCPA. So I think it surprises me a bit, knowing that the Senate and the House of Representatives are still talking about this federal this data protection law in federal coverage. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good point, because when we think about that, for example, in Europe we have LGPD and not GDPR, sorry, and here in Brazil we have LGPD, and
Mhm.
in US we have a different process. I don't know, but maybe it's that my opinion or my perspective. Maybe because when we can find some expose all the information, maybe the Congress, maybe it's more effective when they need to you know covering something or stuff like that. So probably because of that, this is the kind of behavior in US. I don't know if the people that are watching now just remember you. We have this Q&A button, and we don't have, unfortunately, here in Bright Talks the live comment and stuff like that. So we can use in the Q&A button to make some comment with us here in this webinar. It should be very, very nice. And you can put in your opinion, by the way, how you think about that in US, for example. But when we think about the privacy law, it's as I mentioned, the data, it's very, very important. Because of that, we can see in a different conference, for example, I have been, and you too, participating in different security conference in the
Mhm.
last year, and we probably will participate in another the next year. And we can see the implementing culture of the zero trust, because when you're looking more about the zero trust concept, you can treat more about the data, and you can protect the data, because we're going to talk about, for example, on the intellectual property and theft of intellectual property, or the project, a new project or new ideas. So that's the point important. And the data privacy law, it's very important. Because of that, we need to looking for that. And for example, in this vulnerability, the attacker can gain the remote access control of the environment. So you can, the attacker can looking for many different important data inside of the organization. So we need to look in there for that.
Excellent. Interesting that you mentioned about zero trust, because now that we're all working from home, I think that well, I think the security perimeter is gone for a long time. Well, at least in a couple of years, and we have not only zero trust, but Gartner from Carta from Gartner, and also Beyond Corp from Google, for example. There are some models that are zero trust based, and also because of COVID, I think the work environment had the biggest transformation in the last decades. So nowadays, it's easy for me to stay, at least for me, and also I believe for you, it's easy for us to much easier to work from other places. I have friends, for example, that are no longer have homes, so they are working from everywhere. Um, um, According to a study from Tenable and Forrester that I'd like to bring here, 74% of security leaders recognize that the remote work measures, they left their infrastructure vulnerable to malicious attackers. So we're not talking about a perimeter where you have the firewall, and then you have to protect just everything that was outside of that. And now with the well, at least here in Brazil, the pandemic is reaching to end, and I think people are returning to the offices. And I believe the trend here is also that most companies will adopt a hybrid work model, with people working from home and working from the office as well. So I think it's important to protect all of this workforce. And I think zero trust approaches are a good way to do that, to implement zero trust. Do you think companies are moving towards this, or how do you see that companies are facing and zero trust models? Are they implementing that?
Yeah, it's very important when you think about the zero trust, because maybe some people still think that maybe it's a buzzword. Because from my perspective, it's a very interesting point. It's a kind of culture that you need to implement in the organization, because we need to using the two different tools to help you to improve your zero trust culture, like AI, like identity access management and privilege access management. You can use in the context to apply the zero trust culture in your environment. Maybe the people that were watching now, or maybe when the people were watching on YouTube channel, by the way, if you don't, we have our Senha Segura YouTube channel. You can subscribe it us in the YouTube channel, and then this presentation will be published there after this presentation. And maybe you are thinking about the VPN, the using of the VPN. The VPN, it's a virtual private network. It's a tool responsible to deliver this access from the remote worker, right? But from the attacker perspective, the attacker just need to gain the access from this victim machine, and after that they will have the access through this VPN inside the organization. But when you have the zero trust implemented in your organization, you have the authentications process for each request that you have inside your organization, so you can give the more difficult stuffs from the attacker perspective. So that's the point here. Because of that, it's very important implementing this culture of the zero trust. And
Zero
yeah,
trust is identity. I see zero trust as identity based. So constantly you need to verify the identity of the user, and also the patterns that the user does to perform their daily works.
exactly.
Uh, the next trend for 2022 is cybersecurity awareness, and it's interesting that we're talking about zero trust here because security leaders, they tend to implement cybersecurity solutions, and they only think about implementing cybersecurity solutions. I usually say that uh, you have to address three aspects in your organization: people, processes, and tools. So, and some security leaders, they try to just implement tools without working processes, without working the people and cybersecurity awareness, because we say that it's impossible to invest in the state of the art in cybersecurity solutions without addressing the people. Let's say, for example, that you're implementing a specific tool and then someone just clicks on your email, so it's just useless that you have those. And also, when vendors, they improve their techniques and their methods to protect, also the attackers, they create new methods to turn around those tools and perform the malicious actors. Just to give us an idea on how the human factor and why we think that it's important to invest in the human factor. According to the Data Breach Investigation Report 2021, 80% of data breaches involved the human aspect, with social engineering, for example, responding for more than a third of those data breaches. Phishing, for example, were in 37% of data breaches researched the by Verizon.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead, Felipe.
yeah. I think it's the it's very important topic about the security awareness because usually the when we talk about this insecurity teams, the people usually mentioning about the user, it's the point of the weakness point is at the user. But I we need to think about the we have nowadays, unfortunately, many people that don't have the access to the technology, and in the organizations we need to educate, you know, from the team, and not only the team, but we need to looking more, for example, on secure development process, because it's a part important when you build some product. For example, we need to looking more about the product security. Because of that, many companies are, you know, creating a DevSecOps teams or application security teams, because we need to have this concern about the security awareness, not only from the users, but about the DevOps teams, about the developer teams, about the database teams. We need to increase that, and of course, we need to invest in more our budget, and this is specifically training, because uh, it's all those you know, employees, or not only employees but third parties or suppliers. It's a part of the team from the organization, you know, or the context of the company. So it's very important to improve that, and part of the budget we need to invest in that. It's very important. It's a very concern for the next year.
And it's interesting that you're mentioning third party here, and also we were talking before the webinar about other trends that we haven't mentioned here, but we think it's important. And I think it's important to mention the protection of third party as well, right? Because, well, we not only have, for example, third party workforce, for example, uh, Edward Snowden, for example, was a third party. We had also in the supply chain. So we got other companies that develop for us. If we have, for example, applications developed by a third party, we have to be concerned about the security of those applications, because they integrate with our tools through APIs. Are those APIs safe or not? So it's an important topic that I brought here, third party. Felipe.
Yeah, and by the way, I would like to remember the our attendees and everyone stay here with us. Is we have a Q&A button, and you can use it to make a question, or, you know, make some comments. We receive here some comments and questions. And by the way, we have a question for us, David. What do you think about the clouds attack from the next year? What do you think about that? What your idea, for example, about your the security predictions for the next year about the clouds attacks, or the attackers focus in the cloud environment?
Well, I think we've seen a migration for cloud models, so I think that for sure will continue to grow. But I think that the main thing that we have to be concerned here is that companies, they need to concern about the security of the environment. Sometimes they relay the security aspects in the cloud provider, and they don't take attention on that. To give us an idea, according to Gartner, 99% of security incidents in the cloud were the client's fault. So we need to verify what are the roles, what are the permissions, the entitlements, use specific tools. We have Kim, for example, that is a growing area in the cloud. So for security posture, for example, we have CSPMs, Kim solutions. This market will probably grow for to ensure security of the clouds, especially for identities, for example. That those are attack vector that is explored by malicious attackers. So that's how I see the market evolving.
Yeah, and when we talk about the cloud threads, for example, it's a very interesting. If you see in the cloud service provider like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, or GCP, or another, they have the same term called the shared responsibility. What that means in this case, it's specifically that you have the infrastructure here and you have an application here. So that's the point here. So we need to look in from the application that you have inside of these instances in a cloud environment. And this specific application is this responsibility from the users. And by the way, if you see, for example, in AWS or another service cloud provider, we have a marketplace. It's a kind of services of the security that you have inside of cloud. You need to think about that. Because if you think, take a look at that and think with me. So remember, the cloud service provider recommending you implementing some security applications for your application within the cloud. So it's necessary to look in more at that. Of course, the cloud environment recommending you some, security requirements from some policies, but it's a shared responsibility. And sometimes the people think, okay, my data is in the cloud and the cloud is secure and my data is safe. But it's in this case it's different because it's the shared responsibility, right? And if you see about the WASP, okay, and the web applications security stuff that you need to look in more about that, the security requirements about the application security. One of this top 10 is the misconfiguration. In this case, it's
I
the
think it's
person
one of the greatest attack vectors. It's called misconfiguration.
Yeah, it's not in this case. It's the new OWASP top 10. It's not the principal. It's not the main now because they changing, but they changed. It's the last year is one of this main, but now it's different. We in the beginning of this year, the OWASP launched the new OWASP top 10, and but it's a misconfiguration is continue to be one of this top 10. So basically, it's the user responsible for apply the security recommendations in the software, right? And that's the point here. So we need to looking from the security environments and to looking from the many data exposed to the internet. So we need to check all those best practices and stuff like that. And by the way, we have another point here is another question from our people here with us is, what do you think, Davey and Felipe, about the RAS? I mean, it's acronym about the ransomware as a services.
Well, we've seen in the past year and also in this year new records related to ransomware. SonicWall, for example, recorded that in its research, they discovered that there was a 148% increase in attackings involving ransomware in 2021. So far, until September, I think that was a period that they made this research. There was already almost 500 million attacks with this specific malicious software. And probably that number will reach 700 millions by the end of 2021. So and also the techniques that have been used in the software, they have been more sophisticated with as I said before, whenever the solutions evolve, also the attackers evolve in the execution and planning of those cyber crimes. So, and going to the ransom or the RAS attack, that was the question. I see that with those services and the RAS model, I think that the number of the ransomware attacks will also increase, because now we have people that has no experience with programming, and they are just getting a software and from someone else, and just spreading it out. So to give us an idea and also the impact of this, according to a study from SonicWall, there was 370,000 new malware variants. So, and also the tools we will need to evolve to be ready to detect and respond to these to those new variants of malware. But for sure, that number will increase with more people with no knowledge in cybersecurity, just spreading out malwares.
Yeah, and the cyber criminals are hiring people now on the internet, not in the dark web, in the specifically forums open to the internet. So because the idea is to put in some insider of the organizations to open the door, from the attacker. And yes, unfortunately, and this is a good point about this predictions for the next year, the ransomware threats. So to remain the protect against the involved ransomware threats, enterprises will be set their signings, on protected their servers with this strengthening servers, hardening and application control policies, to looking more, server hardening, application control policies. And not only that, but if you think more about the predictions for the next year, it's a ransomware threats and the vulnerability exploits totally link it with the same topic, because we need to how we can manage it, the security path, not security but the path of the application. So how I can update this specific applications. And many times we have this challenge because we have a many legacy applications. So how I can implementing the security path to maintain my software more safe or more secure, like as we saw on the internet now, the log4j, and of course when you have this specifically exploitation or specifically vulnerability, exposed to the internet, many research that you have inside of the world to try explore or to using this vulnerability, to try using different techniques to explore the same vulnerability, and to try using ransomware. And of course the attacker using the same idea, the same creative mind, but for a bad things.
And interesting that you mentioned that, Felipe, that we have applications and we have legacy devices also. And now I'd like to bring the everything connected prediction for 2022. So we have 5G, we have Internet of Things, and also Industry 4.0 that got, well, there was a significant increase of connected devices. So in those devices now we have wearables for we have smartphones, we have all of those smart cities. Also, the agriculture is using a lot of connectivity in their activities. According to Cisco, this number of those connected devices will be more than 29 billion by 2023. And this service attack can be explored, of course, by malicious attackers. And it's interesting that we had the operation technology before that was not a security driven. So the devices were not ready for connectivity, and they were not ready for those kind of security requirements. So probably malicious attackers will take advantage of those vulnerable connections to compromise connected devices. Do you use a lot of wearables, Felipe, or I think do you have a smartphone, smartwatches, and all of those the gadgets, Alexa, and all of those stuff?
Something, I'm a traditional man, just that's just a smartphone is in it's simple. Not I'm not I don't have a light with connected to the internet, but yes, in the next year the IoTs, right, threats increase a lot. So enterprise will strive for improve the networking to monitoring those things and the visibility to safeguard their IT environments against threat arise from IoT adoption. That's the point here, because so we need to think about that. So how we can install the antivirus or some IDR in the light, for example, that you have the light connected to the internet. So how we can manage that? So that's the big challenge here. And so of course we need to monitor in the network, because from my perspective, so how you can safeguard this, or guarantee this protects this environment. This is the very interesting, and then all those informations associated with these IoTs will become a hot commodity with the cyber criminal underground. And it's per enterprise to mine the security gaps, and that might lead to data leaks or tampering. And not only that, but when you using some, for example, IoTs in your environment, not IoT, but call it IIoT, or infrastructure Internet of Things. So putting the IoT inside of the infrastructure, usually you have a bad or weak password with just a 4 or 5 numbers, and it's more sensitive to receive kind of DDoS attacks, for example, and or brute force attacks. And it's a big challenge because the technology are growing all the time, and and the companies want to improve and to automatize the process. And sometimes you read in some papers or watching some TV, some uh, something connected to the internet. So I need to connect this in my organization. So this is a big challenge, because when you connect something to the internet and you open this to the internet, you are open to this as some cyber threats, and you need to protect that. And that is a big challenge.
Yeah, you mentioned infrastructure, and something that I'd like to bring here is the protection of critical infrastructure. I think that is going to be a good, also a part of this trend, because now we're talking about energy transmission, water, gas, and the impact of those cyber attacks are enormous. So if you think that a city can stop getting a power because of a cyber attack, that's scary. And what I've seen, in at least in, well, I've been seeing that in the past 2 years, there was an increase of attacks performed by against critical infrastructure, not only against critical infrastructure, but also against governments. We see New Orleans, for example, that was a victim of a cyber attack. We had a couple, no, New Orleans, I remember. There was Jacksonville was also a victim of a cyber attacks. So the impact that those attacks have are much greater, which will call attention from malicious attackers. And some of those malicious attackers are sponsored by other countries, by our state-sponsored attackers. So I think, and I also like to say that the next wars will not have any bloodshed. That will happen in the virtual space, and I think that should be a priority for
And
governments.
and you can imagine. So it should be nice if I can, talk with the Alexa, and Alexa, protect myself against the threat. This should be nice, right? But unfortunately, no. Okay, actually, we can. I already, already saw in the on YouTube channel and other channels, like this, and about the integration of the Alexas with AWS, and to install something into, but I'm kind of joking, Alexa, protect myself against malwares, again, ransomware, and that's it. And by the way, it's another interesting point, because of course the people looking from the ransomware attack, because it's we receive more impact, right? So the data is blocked, we can access the environment, and but one of the predictions for the next year, it's a commodity malware attacks, not only ransomware, because for example, the malicious actors will continue to think about these smaller businesses, because usually the people are, maybe you are thinking that you are watching now, and you're thinking, no, but I don't work in a big company, I'm not a focus of this the malicious actors or threat actors. No, but unfortunately the malicious attackers, or the attackers, or threat actors, is still looking from the small companies. Of course, when we talk about these startups, for example, usually the startups is started on the cloud native environment. So usually it's more safe, because it depends, of course, where is exactly the cloud that you are working, depending of the knowledge about the security. But the malware is continue to be, one of these focals, of course, using a different techniques, usually using the vulnerability exploits, to exploit the vulnerabilities in the environment, and to install the specifically malware, because it's more silence when you compare with the ransomware attack. You can see the difference. While all our eyes are on the ransomware, the traditional commodities attacks and attacks as a service will have time to innovate more sophisticated tools. And by the way, using and known tools to, it's a kind of techniques using, for example, let me explain specifically to, I don't know if you know, but Microsoft has a package of the many tools called SIS internals. Okay, inside of this package called SIS internals, we have many tools to help you to executing many tasks inside of your Microsoft environment. One of these tools called PSExec. This tool is responsible to executing or to running scripts remotely. It's a known tool. It's a true tool. Okay, but that's the point. So many malwares using this tool to executing malicious scripts, and you see that that's because the threat actors using the known tools to infect an environment. Why the attackers using these tools to infect the environment? Because if you monitoring the malicious activities, when you see these known tools, your tools, or your protect your vendor, your security vendors, you will see this specifically known tools, like a true tool, because they have the hash, the identity from these specifically tools. It's a known tool, it's not malicious, but the actions within these tools is malicious. So maybe you are thinking, so Philip, how I can manage that? It's a big challenge. We need to monitoring all those things. We need to looking more about the behavior. You need to monitor your network, how you can isolate some suspicious behavior, and that's the challenge from this new year in the middle of the pandemic. We hope that the next year, we don't have more pandemic, but the attacker don't think about that.
Well, I think that artificial intelligence and machine learning are good ways to prevent those kind of attacks. So now we're shifting. We don't have security perimeter anymore, and now that we have also something that we have to think here is that we have less security people and have more threats. So well, we're living a cybersecurity talent shortage, and I think that we will continue throughout 2022. But we need to invest our efforts in the development of tools to proper detect and predict before the actual attack is happening. So we have, for example, behavior analysis that can use your keystroke. For example, we have our feature that is called KDI that allows the tool to detect if someone is is not what they say they are. So it recognizes the pattern of the keystroke, and then it stops the malicious action. It stops the malicious attacker before they perform their malicious activities. So I think that the challenge is that to analyze, to recognize the patterns, to prevent, and also to respond to those threats. So the cybersecurity force, they can employ their efforts to do other things to add value within the operation. And also, there's a question here. Maybe you can reply, Felipe. Based on this prediction, how can we increase our protection? I think pretty much what I also said.
Yeah, it's a good question, and thanks for this question, by the way. And if you have others question, people, so please write in the Q&A button. And if you have some comments and putting low, woke, or whatever, you can put in there,
We would
because
like
we
to
don't
hear
have
from
it.
you.
Yeah, let's like this webinar a more relaxed time to talking about the security than cybersecurity. And it's a good question, because the answer is very nice. It depends. It depends of your environment. It depends many things. But let me explain something about that. So first of all, you need to understand about your infrastructure. So how infrastructure works, because when you understand about your infrastructure, your architecture, you can looking from the possible weakness in your environment and understand how your environment works, you can implementing that. So you can use in many different tools, like for example, a perimeter tools like a firewall, like a web application firewall. Remember, we have a difference of those things. One of this is perimeter based on premise or virtualization, but firewall, it's a kind of tool that you can use in, but it's a concept as well, because you can use it in a web application based on a web. For example, you can manage about for example, we talk about the zero trust culture. So we can implementing that using, for example, identity access management, or you can use it, for example, privilege access management, using the concept of the least privilege. In this case, it's how you can give the least privilege to the users from some applications, for example. So you can imagine, if the attacker gain the access for my access, for example, and I don't have any access to the critical assets or critical systems or critical services, the attacker just have a simple access in my environment. They cannot escalate privilege inside of the environment, because my access is using this least privilege concept. And other things is about how you can manage your credentials, your environment. So how your applications works, and how you can manage these specific keys, right, or access keys inside your environment. And other thing is, you have your environment in the cloud environment. So how you can use it, for example, antivirus. This antivirus is using, for example, signatures or just only behavior. Remember that it's a Felipe opinion, okay? Analysis from behavior analysis, it's very nice, but only that it's not enough. Why? Because if you already know the threat, so why you need to execute itself in your environment to see if it's malicious or not, when you see that this threat is real malicious? So why you need to execute itself? So why you need to download in your environment the malware, and after that you need to execute the malware itself, and after that your antivirus will executing the behavior analysis. So when you download the malware, you can block that. So because of that, you need to use in the signatures, the partner signatures. Again, it's my opinion, my perspective. You can have another opinion. No worries about that. We continue to be a friend, okay? And just to be clear, I think it's very important you have both of them, the signatures based on partners and signatures of the malware, no malwares, and behavior analysis like a machine learning and next generation, whatever, because we nowadays we have a next generation fire, next generation APS, next generation Philippe, next generation David, it's something like that, okay? And that's the point here. So we need to looking from your environment, you need to understand, you need to know how your business works, so how your developer team works. So you can improve your development process, because nowadays we have the software development life cycle. So how you can put in the S in front of the SDLC, I mean the secure software development life cycle, how you can increase that. So we have many challenges. So the simple answer about so how we can increase your protection, so it depends of your environment, but I can give you some guidance here. Understand your infrastructure, your architecture, and based on your business, you can improve. You can put in the security sensor in a specifically place in your environment.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about DevOps. I made some notes here that I'd like to further talk about. The first is DevOps. So we see all of these applications with hard-coded secrets. So it's important to have visibility of those secrets in your environment, and and implement DevSecOps. Another aspect that I got here is about the principle of least privilege. And now we're talking about zero trust, and we have several approaches to respond to this zero trust requirement. For example, you have just a JIT, just-in-time access, that gives the privilege credential, for example, just for the amount time. So we have the principle that say that the access will be given for the right time and for the right things that the user wants to perform. So the purpose of that is to reduce the attack surface that can be explored by malicious attackers to perform their attacks.
Yeah, DevOps, it's a pretty nice topic that I like a lot, by the way. And I worked with some tools, to open source tools, by the way, and I have this project in my GitHub. And if you want to see more about that, you can follow me on Twitter, and Philip Pierce, at Philip Pierce, and my LinkedIn as well, Philip Pierce, and my GitHub is Felipe, FILIPI, everything with I. Okay, Felipe 86. You can see the project in my GitHub. There's a it's a SaaS product, okay, statistic application testing analysis. When you perform that during the development process, is very interesting, because the idea behind of the DevOps is to increase the architecture more automatically, right? And when you put some process automatically, you don't have the sensors between the DevOps process. And so how you can looking more at security in this specific process, because when you automatize the process, if you suffer some attack, it's totally automated, the process. So if you receive some attacks, if you don't have any alerts, it's impossible to see. Not impossible, but it's difficult to see if you're not a security guy. Okay, and that's the point here. So you need to see more about that, and you need to put in the security inside of DevOps. And one of this question that I would like to do about to make you, David, it's about the talent of the cybersecurity people, because when I started to work in security, in the security field, it was in 2015. Okay, it's 6 years old. Yeah, and I already heard about the challenge to hiring people in the security. So, what do you think about? We are in the end of the 2021, starting 2022. So, what your perspective about this? I don't know. It's not a fault, but we don't have the people to hiring, or actually we have, but how the market works with that.
Well, I see some aspects here, Felipe. The first one is about the pandemic. I think, well, at least in the US, I've been hearing that the people are quitting their jobs. So in all of the fields, people are just quitting, and they're not getting other jobs. We still don't understand how this will impact the cybersecurity space, but probably will, because we have people from lots of different industries. Another aspect that we have to take account here is that security teams are probably overburdened. We see the rise of cyber attacks, and some companies are not properly investing in cybersecurity. Some companies even don't have a cybersecurity team, especially small and medium business. And you're talking about small and medium business. There is an interesting and attractive part of companies, because they usually don't have cybersecurity budgets, and they need to secure as much as the big companies. And the challenge here is for vendors to develop tools specifically for this market. And we've been seeing SaaS, for example, that is a strategy that is being used by vendors to deliver their cybersecurity solutions. Here, as we at Senha Segura, for example, we have developed our PAM SaaS delivery model. So the cost to acquire the tool is much less than, and also to operate the tool is much reduced, and they can fit in small and medium businesses. So and going back to the workforce, teams and people are overburdened with stress. So I think the challenge will be to form, to educate the workforce to become cybersecurity specialists, instead of just looking at the market, and at the same time invest in cybersecurity solutions. So we have two challenges. We have to form, to acquire the tools, the cybersecurity tools, and we also have to invest in the people to use these tools and be able to stop malicious attackers. And also in the same time, we already talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, and vendors have to invest time to automate the process of detection and response. So if we have all of those aspects combined, I think we can address the workforce. There's a question here. There's a question here asking about certification. How do we get prepared for those challenges, Philippe? What are I believe the person is asking the certification offered by the cybersecurity market.
What kind of certification we can get in the security field, right? And a very, very good question. And by the way, in our webinar in Portuguese, we received the same question, and it's very nice question. And on the market, if you think about that, we have, for example, when you talk about the security, it depends of the exactly field or area inside of the security we would like to work, actually. Because we have, for example, an offensive security, we have a defensive security, we have investigation security, we have application security. It's more about the developer environment, and it depends of the specific field that we would like to work. So we have the main certificate.
The identity field also.
Identity field, exactly. And but for example, if you work with the offensive team, you can looking more about the three main company or organization responsible for give this specific certification, like a SAMS, looking from the offensive security and defensive security, and like and also purple team and blue team, red team. And purple, it's a mix of the offensive and defense team, looking more at adversary simulation. SANS is the one of this specifically. And another is about the offensive security. You have a very known, and you have a different levels to take these specific certifications. We have a wine, and inside of the wine, we have the e-learning security voucher to take these certifications, to looking more about offensive security and the defensive security, purple team, and investigations, and so on and so on. And we have another certifications looking more about the identity, or about the management, about the CSP, it's very known certifications. And we can start with this kind of ethical hacking to working more about that. And so we have many, right? And my recommendation, of course, is to looking more this three pillars of three different companies, like SAMS, offensive security, and e-learning. E-learning is winding up, and we have a very good certification to take there, or to get there. And yeah, this is the recommendations basically.
Well, for the identities space, we have the Identity Management Institute, which is the organization that issues identity-related certifications. Um, so I think we're almost running out of time. Maybe we
We have a
can
more
wrap up.
5 minutes. Yeah. And the
Uh,
people, if you have any more questions, so please asking a question. It's not a button actually. We have a type of a question or comment you send for us, and we have a more 5 minutes, I think. And go ahead. And
I think we can we can speak one more trend about cybersecurity, which is the social freedom. So
Mhm.
we have social websites and companies social networks influencing the some of the latest happenings like Brexit and also the elections. And well, we know that some countries will have elections next year. So I think we have to pay attention how, we can call them malicious attackers because they are using the social networks to spread fake news, for example. And I know that this, in in the latest years, that was in a hype. And do you think that maybe governments will regulate the way that social networks are used, Felipe? Or do you think this properly regulated, that it doesn't need regulation? How do you see that?
Actually, it's a good point. And you know, I was I was wondering about that, about the influence about the social engineering, not social engineer, but the social media actually, because as you mentioned, when you talk about the election, so we can see in different countries about the power of this influence in using the social media. And about the laws about that, I think it depends of the country, and looking more about that. But it's a good point to pay attention, or to take the attention about that, because as we see on the, for example, here in Brazil, in the last election, for example, we have the good example about one of the candidate of the presidents. um, this specifically guy don't have a space to talk it on TV. It's Amoedo, guys, if I don't remember.
Mhm.
But the position in the election, to in the five position, I think. But we had 12 people, with the president election. So you can imagine what, and basically the campaign using the social media. So, and you can see what important, not important, but what the impact in using the social media. It's very high. And in the same case, when you talk about the threat actors, they're using the social media to investigate your life, investigate your company, to looking from that the recognition steps, and or the social, or the intelligence gathering. This is the correct naming. It's
Mhm.
another technique used by the attacker. So it's a good point for the next year.
Well, I think that social media, they have the responsibility in moderating and controlling actually crimes and also hate speech. So I think it's a balance between freedom of speech. There's a thin line between freedom of speech and committing crimes. And what we've seen, for example, in the beginning of 2021, when there was all of these riots that were called by Facebook, on Facebook, and people invaded the Congress. And you think how an organization can have such an impact on a society. So I think that's what we have to reflect, and that's what we
Hmm.
have to think. What uh, is that okay? Is that legal? That a big company has control on how people think and how people react, and the impact that this had. Is control, for example, the United Kingdom getting out of the European Union. So and now we see after now with the pandemic that they are still working to work on this aspect, and also in the U.S. elections. But maybe it's not that's a difficult subject to talk about, but we need to recognize how social media impact our lives today. To, and
Yeah,
not only that, we
exactly.
have TikTok, for example. People don't, at least I don't use TikTok. I don't know about you, Felipe, but I have privacy concerns about
Yeah.
social media as well. There's also this point.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you, Dave. By the way, I don't use TikTok, but I can see here in the influence of the about the music, for example. Asking nowadays for my wife, so I didn't hear about this kind of song, and she tell me, yes, this is a kind of it's from TikTok. Oh, okay, I got it, and that's it. But
And
by the way, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say also the influence that now all of this connectivity has. I was thinking today that in Portugal, for example, the children are speaking like Brazilian Portuguese because they hear lots of Brazilian Portuguese
Yeah,
videos. That
influencers. Yeah,
yeah, that influences a lot.
exactly.
That's
Exactly,
interesting.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. The power of the social media, not
Yeah,
only from technology, but about the threats. So think about that and increase your sensors in your organizations. Okay. And by
yeah.
the way, we are
And don't
finishing
click on
our.
malicious links.
Yeah, it's very
Pay
important.
attention to that.
Yeah, we are finishing our webinar, and I would like to say thank for some people from some countries. From I'm seeing here the website from the United Kingdom, from India, from Canada, from Mexico, from Philippines, from the United States, from Kenya, so Argentina, Greece, so many countries, Chile, Poland. No, nice. I live in Poland, by the way, in 2000. I nie mów po polsku, by the way. I don't speak
Mhm.
Polish. Australia, so many countries, in France, Germany, and Brazil, by the way. So thank you, everyone, for staying here. I'd like to say thank you from this time to talk with us, and that's very nice conversation. Thank you for the many questions that you sent and the comments. And from Indonesia, Tunisia, awesome. Morocco, yeah, man, many
Excellent.
countries, awesome. Egypt, by the way, nice, nice, nice. David, your last words.
Well, 2022 will be a challenging year. So I think we need to start to think about implementing properly cybersecurity, even for those companies that still don't have a cybersecurity area. I think it's a good time to start thinking and also have a security-driven mind. So think about security and also in development of applications. So we have the security by design principle. So try to establish and to think about security, and also in terms of organizations, but we think us as people. Also try to invest in now in cybersecurity awareness to train people to not click on malicious links because that will probably be an important vector for malicious attackers. So if we
Yeah,
think about all the phishing that could be avoided, all the phishing attacks that could be avoided if people were properly educated. So hopefully in 2022 we'll be together, me, Felipe, and the whole Senha Segura team to
yeah.
inform you guys and to bring more important aspects in cybersecurity and privilege access management, of course.
And two more,
And
thanks from Ukraine and in Czech Republic, by the way, because I'm watching here the people looking for whole almost whole webinar. So another two thanks for two new countries here.
excellent, excellent. Thank you very much for the for. I would like to thank Felipe for your time here. Maybe if you want to also give final words, but thank you very much for your time here, and thank you for everybody who's watching us. I hope that you got valueless in value insights from our conversation today.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, for staying here with us. And it's always a pleasure to be here and to talk about the security. And if you have any doubts or any points and questions, so we have our social medias and on LinkedIn, on Twitter, so you can send a message to us. And remember, this we
Not
received
forget to
this.
follow us on our YouTube channel also.
Oh, yes, I will mention that. And you receive this recording, and we are publishing after this presentation on YouTube channel, and subscribe us. And yes, so that's it. Thank you so much again, and see you in the next webinar.
Thank you very much. Have Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye.
Bye-bye.